They laughed when he introduced her, not openly, not cruelly. The kind of laughter that hides behind polite smiles and exchanged looks. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else checked their phone. I watched it happen from my seat, hands folded, knowing exactly what they were thinking before anyone said it out loud. Too old, too slow, a mistake. He didn't defend her. Not yet. He just stood there, calm, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. That was when I understood the cost of the choice he'd already made. Not money, not reputation, something heavier. Something that would outlast the room, the meeting, even the company itself. And once that line was crossed, there was no way back for any of us. I had worked with him for most of my adult life. Not closely at first. We crossed paths in meetings, shared nods in hallways, exchanged careful opinions in rooms where too much certainty could be dangerous. Over time, proximity turned into trust. The kind built quietly, without declarations. The company was proud of calling itself modern, lean, forward-looking, youthful. Those words showed up everywhere, in presentations, on walls, in the way new hires were praised for energy before competence. Experience was respected in theory, tolerated in practice. Aging was something you did discreetly, preferably off the org chart. When the partnership opportunity came up, it surprised no one that he was chosen to lead it. He had the results, the history, the calm authority people leaned on when things went wrong. What surprised everyone was who he chose to bring with him. She had been around longer than any of us. Decades. Not loud. Not visible in the way ambition usually is. She didn't network, didn't posture. She knew systems the rest of us treated like folklore. When something broke in a way no one understood, someone would quietly say her name, and the problem would stop being mysterious. I had seen her work, watched younger managers explain things to her she had helped design, watched her listen patiently, then solve in 5 minutes what had taken others weeks to complicate. She didn't correct people publicly. She didn't advertise her value. She just showed up, did the work, and went home. He noticed that. While others saw age, he saw continuity. While they saw risk, he saw insurance. When rumors started about his choice, the tone shifted. Words like optics and scalability floated around. Someone joked that the partnership would need extra time to move. Another asked, half smiling, whether this was sentimental loyalty masquerading as strategy. He didn't respond to any of it. Not defensively, not apologetically. He kept moving forward, assembling documents, outlining roles, insisting quietly that she be present at every discussion. I remember thinking, back then, that this wasn't stubbornness. It was a test, not of her ability, of everyone else's values. And tests like that don't reveal themselves until someone is brave enough to choose, knowing exactly who will feel threatened by the answer. The dismissal came wrapped in courtesy. That was the worst part. It happened during a closed-door review, the kind meant to finalize things, not question them. Slides were projected, numbers aligned, everything pointed forward, until someone leaned back and said it gently, like offering advice instead of drawing a line. "We're concerned about long-term compatibility." Another voice followed, smoother. "This partnership needs to project confidence in the future." No one said her age. They didn't need to. It hung in the room, unchallenged, filling the spaces between their sentences. She sat beside him, hands folded neatly, eyes on the table. She wasn't surprised. That was clear. People who've lived through enough of this learn to recognize the moment before it arrives. I watched her absorb it without flinching, without giving them the satisfaction of resistance. They suggested alternatives: consultants, junior partners with growth potential. They framed it as protection for him, for the company, for the image they were trying to preserve. Each suggestion erased her a little more, until her presence became inconvenient silence. He let them finish. Then he did something none of us expected. He asked one question: "Is there a performance concern?" The room shifted. Papers shuffled. Someone adjusted their glasses. "No," they admitted. "Her record is exemplary." "Then, is there a trust issue?" Another pause. "No." He nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already knew. "Then, what you're asking," he said, "is for me to agree that experience becomes a liability once it stops being decorative." No one answered. That was when he made it official. Calmly, clearly. "She's my partner," he said. "Or there is no partnership." The words didn't land loudly. They landed heavy. The meeting ended shortly after. Not in agreement. In discomfort. They told him they'd need time. That there would be consequences. That decisions like this affected confidence at higher levels. He stood, thanked them for their honesty, and walked out with her beside him. In the hallway, she finally spoke. Quiet. Practical. "You don't have to do this," she said. "I understand." He stopped walking and turned to her. "No," he said. "You understand why they want me not to." That was the moment everything broke open. Not because he chose her, but because they realized he was willing to lose what they valued in order to protect what they didn't. And from that point on, whatever this cost him, status, alliances, future doors, it was already decided. They had dismissed the wrong person, and in doing so, they had underestimated the price of their own prejudice. The response was swift, but never direct. That's how institutions protect themselves. Nothing in writing. Nothing you can point to and say, "This is it." Just a slow tightening. Meetings he used to lead were reassigned. Invitations stopped arriving. Decisions he'd already cleared were suddenly under review. The partnership timeline stretched until it barely resembled a plan. People who once sought his opinion now offered it back to him, unsolicited, diluted. And her position changed overnight. Not officially. She still had her role, her desk, her access. But the work she was given shrank. Strategic conversations happened without her. Younger managers were copied on threads she'd built from the ground up. She noticed, of course. She always did. But she never mentioned it. That restraint became its own kind of protest. Whispers followed them. That he was being emotional. That loyalty had clouded his judgment. That he was risking everything for sentimentality. Someone actually used the word charity in a meeting, as if decades of contribution could be reduced to benevolence. What stung most was how quickly others adjusted their morals to fit the room. People who had privately agreed with him now avoided eye contact. Support evaporated when it started to cost something. I watched it happen and said nothing. That's the part I carry with me. Outside the company, pressure mounted too. Investors questioned stability. Partners delayed commitments. He was advised, carefully, to reconsider, to compromise, to choose a transitional solution that would save face and restore confidence. He listened. He always listened. Then he declined. Not angrily, not defiantly. He simply kept working. Kept building the model as if the partnership were inevitable. Kept involving her in every critical decision. If they wouldn't give her a seat at the table, he built another table. That's when envy crept in. Not of her, of him. People resented that he wasn't panicking. that he wasn't begging to be let back into favor. His calm unsettled them more than rebellion ever could. It suggested he saw a future they didn't control. The strain showed at home. Long nights, quiet calls, calculations that didn't include safety nets anymore. He knew exactly what he was risking. He just refused to pretend it was unreasonable. One evening, after another delayed approval, she finally broke her silence. "They're waiting you out," she said. "They think time will do their work for them." He nodded. "They're right," he said, "just not the way they think." Because while they stalled, he prepared. Documents, contacts, contingencies no one else had bothered to consider. He wasn't fighting to stay. He was getting ready to leave, with something intact they had already decided to discard. And once that intention settled in him, the balance of power shifted quietly, irreversibly. The escalation wasn't loud, it was patient, and it was moving in only one direction. It happened without warning, which was fitting. No final negotiation, no dramatic showdown. He requested one last meeting, framed it as procedural, a closure discussion. They agreed quickly, relieved, I think, believing he was finally ready to concede something. He wasn't. He walked in with a single folder. Thin. That alone should have worried them. People who bluff bring stacks. He thanked them for their time, acknowledged the concerns they'd raised over the past months. Then he placed the folder on the table and slid it forward. Inside was everything they hadn't anticipated. A fully executed agreement with an external partner they had underestimated. Capital already committed. Clients already aligned. A structure that didn't require their approval or their permission. And at the center of it, formally named, contractually protected, was her. Not as a consultant, not as an advisor, as an equal partner. The room froze. Someone started to speak, then stopped. Another flipped pages too quickly, searching for leverage that no longer existed. They asked if this was a negotiation tactic. "No," he said. "This is notice." He explained calmly that he was stepping away effective immediately, that the partnership opportunity they had delayed no longer belonged to them, that the intellectual groundwork, the relationships, the operational continuity they believed they controlled had already moved. Then he said the sentence that ended everything. "You were so focused on how she looked to the future that you forgot who actually knew how to build it." No anger, no satisfaction, just fact. She hadn't spoken yet. She didn't need to. Her presence there, undeniable, was already rewriting every assumption they had made. They warned him about consequences, legal complexity, reputation, burned bridges. He nodded once. "I know," he said. "I counted the cost when you dismissed her." He stood. She stood with him. Side by side, not behind. As they walked out, no one followed. What they lost that day wasn't just a partner. It was the illusion that power belongs to those who decide who is worthy, rather than those who recognize it early enough to protect it. And that decision, made quietly months earlier, had finally come due. The story didn't end in headlines. It rarely does when the wrong people expect them. They built something smaller than what had been offered originally, but stronger. Fewer layers, fewer egos. Decisions made by people who remembered why systems existed in the first place. She moved through the work with the same calm precision she always had. Only now, no one spoke over her. No one rushed her. Experience wasn't a liability. It was the foundation. The old company adjusted, publicly, issued careful statements, reframed the separation as mutual. Inside, though, the gaps showed. Projects stalled. Knowledge walked out the door in quiet increments. They had dismissed continuity, and now they were paying to rediscover it. He didn't gloat. That wasn't his nature. When people reached out later, some apologetic, some opportunistic, he listened, but he didn't go back. Certain doors only open once, and some only close properly when you refuse to knock again. As for her, something changed that surprised even those who knew her well. Not her work ethic, her presence. She stopped minimizing herself, stopped softening truths to make them easier to hear. When she spoke, people leaned in, not because of her title, because she had survived being underestimated and chosen anyway. I think about that choice often, about how easily they dismissed her, and how quickly envy and prejudice revealed themselves when consequences arrived. They believed they were protecting the future. What they protected instead was their comfort. The cost wasn't immediate. It never is. It unfolded over time, in missed insight, in fragile structures, in the quiet realization that the people they had written off were the ones who could have held everything together. They dismissed the elderly partner he chose. What they lost wasn't her. It was the future they thought they controlled.